Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. And in social media news, we are basically asking the question, should social media get First Amendment protections? I don't think they want them, and we'll talk about that. But here's what got me thinking about this. There's a recent article by Rob Thubron of TechSpot that was talking about a specific aspect of this. And here's what's going on. The Federal Bureau of Prisons, or BOP, earlier this year proposed a rule change that makes accessing, using, or maintaining social media accounts by prisoners a high severity level prohibited act. It's essentially at the same level in the scale of fighting, blackmail, extortion, or bribery if you're behind bars. Now, federal inmates, if you didn't know, are already banned from using cell phones and restricted from accessing the internet. The Bureau of Prisons argues that if an inmate's Facebook account were being operated to convey content from the inmate himself, it would open the door to them basically communicating with essentially, who knows, an unlimited number of people, including affiliated gang members or even the victims of their crimes as well. Advocates for this rule say that the rules would stop people from making posts about inmates in case it leads to serious punishment for said inmates, such as longer prison terms, solitary confinement, or even a deduction of good time credits, meaning if you're looking to get out early, this might extend it. Now, a separate part of the proposed rule change would also enable the Bureau to target and eliminate inmates use of the fund transfer service or multiple fund transfer services like Cash App or Venmo. When inmates use these services to send and receive money, the Bureau can't see this. They can't monitor it because of the encryption that the platforms have. Obviously, it's a financial institution. It is going to basically encrypt all of these transactions. And so if you're getting, money from your fellow drug lord or something, they can't see it. Now, inmates' rights advocacy groups on the other side of this coin say that the rule would restrict the First Amendment rights of not only prisoners, but also the people who are not in custody. Meaning, I have somebody that I know in prison, for example, and I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't been charged with anything, but now I'm being restricted and from my speech. Now, Ebony Underwood, whose nonprofit is known as We Got Us Now, works with children of incarcerated parents, and she called the social media proposal, quote, archaic and so inhumane. Social media has been an avenue for so many young people in my community to be able to advocate for our parents. Now, all of that said, I think there's merit on both sides of this in the sense that, yes, if you are let's say, young child and you have a parent that's incarcerated, obviously that's a horrible situation, whatever the circumstances are, and you'd want to keep good communication open with what I would hope would be a loving parent behind bars. That said, there is actually some merit to essentially not allowing, let's say, coordination through social media instant messaging or something else with, let's say, rival and affiliate gangs, those kinds of things online, or harassing victims of your crime if you're the stalker type of person that's incarcerated. We tend to make laws here in the United States to the lowest common denominator, and the lowest common denominator oftentimes ends up in prison, and that is an unfortunate feature, I guess, quirk, whatever you want to call it, of our system. So it really comes down to, should social media be protected under First Amendment rights? Now, think about it this way. At the moment, they might be publicly traded companies like Facebook, etc., but they're private corporations, mean they have the unilateral ability to police themselves. Now, they can be approached by the government from local to federal with things like warrants, orders from judges, etc., to turn over information. They also have the ability to essentially monitor and ban whoever they want. They also have the ability to restrict free speech. There has been a push for people to say, okay, Facebook is censoring me because I'm a liberal, a conservative, or whatever it is. I hear it literally from both sides, not getting political here. That's simply the truth. And so a lot of people have advocated for the Facebooks of the world to get Title II protections, meaning they essentially are treated as a utility, and therefore they're subject to more government scrutiny. But what that means for the Facebooks of the world that are massive profit-making machines is that under Title II, they're not going to have the ability to essentially restrict that kind of speech. So you want to let Nazis back on the platform, that's what we're talking about here, right? And so the worst of essentially society may eventually come back. We're seeing these changes, for example, in Twitter that cut a lot of their safety teams, that they've stopped restricting a lot of this content in the name of free speech. I don't care if you're for or against this kind of stuff. Understand it fundamentally changes how the platform is going to operate. Twitter is a perfect example of this. Ever since Elon Musk took over, and essentially we've seen a rise per researchers in things like anti-Semitism, hate speech, all that kind of stuff. Again, don't care where you are on the political spectrum. That's simply fact, to the point where Elon Musk basically said, okay, if you're going to be a researcher, you no longer can hook into our API for free. We're going to charge you like $40,000, $50,000, which essentially killed access to the API by these research groups. So it's harder to get telemetry on what essentially is there. But the net effect that has had is that the population of Twitter has decreased. And a lot of people left because they really didn't want to hear or see any of that kind of content on Twitter. And to be perfectly honest, my perfectly curated, feed and all of that, as I'm looking for, is now has people I've never even heard of talking about political things when my feed was mostly news previously. So the algorithms have changed. Now, if this basically became the law of the land and everybody was at Title II, then essentially what we're talking about here is no restrictions whatsoever, because it's acting essentially as a public service. And I think that is something that they don't want, because again, you're going to see people jump ship and move to another social media platform or simply abandon social media altogether, which quite frankly, I'm fine with that, but for those that stay, it becomes a much rougher place, maybe more so than it is. And I like to say Twitter's where civility goes to die, and we have seen an increase in the anger. We've also seen an increase in the disinformation and all of that. But what's going to happen is if it gets even worse, because essentially the Facebooks of the world cannot enforce any kind of censorship that they want, advertisers are going to leave and they're going to lose money. So the last thing they want is essentially to have a place where they are enforced to be an actual town hall. So that's my thought on that. I'd be very curious to know your thoughts on this, but that's essentially what got me thinking of this. And I guess prison inmates were the bellwether here. So we're going to see what happens. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, where you can post almost whatever you want, but you can't go crazy. Same with YouTube as well, where they'll censor you. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.